Hey crochet fans, Tasha here. When I make videos for Forever Bliss Crochet, they tend to either answer a question that I hear a lot from my students, or it's a topic that I don't hear discussed very often. Today's topic, I think, falls under both of these categories, and that is the tools of a crocheter. I'm going to show you my absolute favorite tools. Here in part 1, we'll discuss the physical tools, and in part 2, my favorite digital tools. And all of these tools will be listed below in the description. First thing I recommend is that you get a case for all of your tools. This is my case. It's actually the very first thing that I bought when I decided to crochet or learn to crochet, and I've had it for 14 years. It's been the only thing I've kept all my stuff in, and I've just put all the tools that I've accumulated over the years in here with it, and it has worked out really well for me. I've never lost anything. Everything's here in one place and it doesn't take up much space. It's a good size to fit in my bag or with whatever project that I'm working on. It has served me very, very well. This case came with 6 crochet hooks, which would be these here, and one's missing because I lent it out and never got it back. But the rest of these 5 came with it, so it was originally 6 hooks and the case. So my second recommendation would be get a set of hooks. Whether it comes with a case or you buy a case separately, that's totally up to you. This here is actually the Boy brand. That's what I started off with and that I absolutely love. Whichever style of hook is your favorite, get it in multiple sizes. You eventually are going to use multiple sizes of hooks. And I actually have a video coming out about how to do a gauge swatch and what a gauge means. And in that we will be using different crochet hooks. So that's an example of how you're going to use different size hooks for different projects. And like I said, everything else is kind of fallen in here, and I'll go through these one at a time. Obviously, scissors, something to cut your yarn with. It could be something like this. They come in different forms, different sizes, whatever's going to work for you. In a pinch, I've also used nail clippers, like if I'm not home and for some reason they're missing, maybe they didn't get put back in there. But I've been traveling like on a plane and I don't want to take these scissors. Actually, I wouldn't take this case. But I wouldn't take scissors on there, and I just use my nail clippers that are in my purse. So that's another method for you to be cutting your yarn. If you notice, I have some different crochet hooks in here. This one is called Crochet Light, and I only have it in one size because I bought it for a specific project, and I bought it in my favorite size, which is the size I9. But what's different with these is the end lights up. You see that? I'll turn it off so you can see. Off, on. And this is fabulous for when you're working with like black yarn or a situation where the light is dim. This illuminates your work so you can actually do it anywhere, and I love it, love it, love it. I don't use it very often because I'm usually in a well-lit area and I don't tend to work with black yarn, but when I have, I absolutely love this hook. The other type of hook I would suggest that you try is maybe one with a handle kind of like this. Whether you make it or you buy it, totally up to you. There's a lot of videos out there about how to make these yourself if you want, but this is a very inexpensive set I got. I'll try to find it on Amazon because that's where I purchased it from. It's kind of a no-name brand. I think there is a name brand that kind of looks like this, but what's great about these types of hooks is the handles are all the same size. This one here is an I9 just like before because this is the one that I always keep in my case, but it came in a set of like 12, I believe, 12 hooks that go bigger and a lot smaller as well. This is kind of like right in the middle of the whole range that was available. But the handles themselves are all the same size, and each hook is a different color, and it has, the size imprinted here in millimeters, so you'll have to get used to that. But what that means is no matter what size hook you're using, no matter what size this diameter is, what your hand is holding is always the same. So this really helps when you're working with smaller size hooks, in which you might get maybe a hand cramp or just a soreness in your hand from holding something so small. This way what you're holding is always the same size, and I find that I can crochet longer when I use one like this, which is really fabulous. Next, I'm going to say one of my absolute favorite tools that I must tell everyone about are stitch markers. These type of stitch markers are the interlocking ones. They look like just really big safety pins. There are different type of stitch markers out there. Most of the other kinds are useful in knitting and not so much in crochet. So because the fabric that we create in crochet is different than knitting, these are the only ones that I use in crochet. I actually don't use any other types. But they'll come in a pack like this, usually a set of 12, and they're typically about $5. Now don't go to the store and expect to only pay $5 and they charge more. I don't know. Last time I bought these, they were about $5. So I'll put a link to this as well down in the description. Hopefully they're about that same size and I'm not leading you astray, but something I would suggest when you're looking into these is get a name brand. I bought some no-name brand off of eBay once. They came from a foreign country, which I will not name. They were absolutely horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. I will never use those again. I went back to this name brand, which actually this is imprinted that these are made in Japan. Love them. Love them. I will always be getting these. Now you may think, how often am I really going to use a stitch marker? Well, let me show you a few different ways that I use them. So the first way you can use it here is actually to distinguish the right side of your fabric from the wrong side. Say you're working with a pattern that tells you which is the right side. So usually that's the first row that you're making. So let's pretend that I'm working on a pattern in which it says this current row that I'm working on is the right side. So I'll work for a few stitches and I'll take a stitch marker. Sorry, I got a little out of frame there, and I'll put it right in the front of that stitch, and then I'll just keep working. And then you'll notice I didn't stick it in the V and across the top, because when I come back to do my next row I'll be working in these loops. I did it on one that was on the very front and one that's not going to be mistaken to be on the back side. So later on in my pattern, when I'm supposed to know what's the right side and wrong side, this is right there, and I know without a doubt this is the right side. Another way, and the way that I most commonly use these stitch markers, is when I'm in the middle of a project and I'm ready to put it away for a little while and I have this last loop on here. Oops. Close that up, and this last loop isn't going anywhere. My work is not going to come unraveled, and I have no concerns about losing all of my precious stitches. So instead of leaving your hook on the loop that has a possibility of falling out somehow, or leaving your hook on the loop and then stuffing it in your skein of yarn and then maybe losing your hook in your skein, don't take the risk and use this handy dandy stitch marker to save yourself a lot of grief. And the third way that I tend to use my stitch markers is to indicate something in my project as I'm working. This one here is, say, the beginning of a hat where you're working in the round and you are increasing in regular intervals all the way around. So I've indicated here where the increase should be. I get to here, I make this first stitch, I put this stitch marker in the new stitch, make my increase, and I keep going and do the same thing when I get to this one. And I do it all the way around. And so each round that you do as it grows, you know where your increases should be, and you're not counting like you'd have to otherwise if you didn't use something like this. And then I have this one as a different color because this is the beginning of my row, or round. This is the beginning of my round. So I know when I get around here, this is a new round and I have to join it rather than just continuing. And it's also an indicator of an increase. A tool that I would never crochet without is a yarn needle. At some point you are going to have an end to weave in. I do have a video about that. Even if you're one who has jumped the bandwagon on some of these new types of joins for yarns in the middle of a project, you are still going to have the ends at the beginning and the end, or just the end depending on how you do your ends. So they come in different forms. I have plastic versions and a metal version here. I think these two actually came together as a set, and this one here you can see the end is angled, and I think that is helpful for some situations. I guess for the stuff that I make I tend not to need something like that, but it's still in my case for just the occasion if it should come up. This plastic one, this light blue one, I used a lot for a number of years, and some people may prefer the plastic kind because they're a little pliable. You may find that you like that. Once I tried this metal one, I have not gone back to the plastic. I really like this type of needle. Because of the stiffness, I find it works really well for the way that I do my ends, and you can watch a video about that. But I highly recommend that you get this. They tend to come in packs of 2. Even this metal one came in packs of 2, and I did lose the first one, so I'm glad I had this second one. But it's something I will certainly never go without. My next favorite tool is called a knit-chek. And this is the Susan Bates brand. And every brand is going to have its own layout and its own version of this, but all the functions of it are going to be the same. Right here you have the cutout to do a gauge swatch, which I will show you in another video, so be on the lookout for that. You have holes here that indicate the size of your hooks or your needles. Knitters use this the same as we would do. It's called a knit-chek because it came from knitters. But how we would use these holes is, say you have hooks, either you got them, you inherited them, you got them from a garage sale or something. They're older and maybe they don't have the size written on them. Maybe you got them from an artisan that formed it out of wood and the indicator is rubbed off or something like that. What you can do is take the base of your hooks and try to put them in the different holes. And once they fit, that is the size of your hook. This one fits perfectly. This one's too small. And this one, there's extra room in there. So, for some reason you may need that. I haven't needed that too often because I told you I have this set that's 14 years old and you can obviously still read the size of those hooks. But others of you may find this useful. On here is also an indicator of the sizes. And I'm not sure if this is focusing enough for you if you can actually see that. I apologize if you can't see well. So the size I'm working on here, it's an I. You can see your crochet hook size is along the bottom, and we know they go with the letters. Knitting needle sizes are the numbers across the top, and then millimeter sizes is the very top line. So if you are unsure when it comes to the letter, the number, or the millimeter sizes, this is an excellent reference to be able to know, okay, what size is a J in millimeters? Say you need to know that. Well, it's a 6 millimeters and it's knitting needle size 10. So I find this extremely helpful. I do refer to this part quite a bit when I'm looking at patterns or issues come up that I have a question about, and this is an excellent reference. You'll see here we also have ways of measuring. We got centimeters across the top and inches across the bottom. This is useful for doing wraps per inch, trying to figure out what size yarns you have. I'll be doing that in a separate video as well. Or if you know, anything that you need to measure, these are awesome. I would not live without my knit-chek. I absolutely recommend it to everybody. And my final favorites tool is a retractable measuring tool. I love this for measuring absolutely everything, from my head, for making a hat, for making socks, garments, afghans, anything that needs to be a certain length. Because this is flexible, I can tailor it to anything that I need to be measuring. I always measure in inches. Maybe you're someone who does it in centimeters, so that is there as well. Sorry, with the light you can hardly kind of see those. But I love that it's retractable and it fits so nicely in my case. I don't even know if I've ever even pulled this one all the way out, but obviously it would give you quite a bit of length in measuring, far more than what the knit-chek would do. So this is absolutely one of my favorites. There you have it, my favorite physical tools for a crocheter. What are yours? Comment below and let me know. Then like, share, and add this video to a playlist so you can find it later. Remember to subscribe to this channel so you know when those new videos come out. Thanks for watching!